Calcio titles!
Well, everything with Lazio is going fine. Had a tremendous win on Sunday. We won 5-0 and I enjoyed the game. As you know, I played with mask and looked a little bit like Phantom of the Opera. Everything went well. Didn't get a knock on it, and hopefully Lazio only need 2 points to qualify for UEFA. That's what the fans wanted, and hopefully that's what we'll give them. But all we need is 2 points, and that will secure us for UEFA, hopefully. It's been a tremendous week, and you know, trains went well, and a few things, scary things have happened for me. But I'll be telling you a lot about that later. But first, this.
Coming up, a Ruben Sosa special as Inter fight to stay in the Serie A title chase. James Richardson delves behind the headlines for all the week's news. All 26 goals from Serie A, including the 5 that pushed Cagliari up into a UEFA Cup reckoning. We announce the names of the lucky winners who will be going to Rome for the Italian Cup final, and more prizes to be won in this week's competition. After Parma's success at Wembley, we see Juventus bid to make it an Italian double in Europe. There's all the news from that man in the mask. We take a close look at the promotion battle in Serie B, where Reggiano became the first team to clinch a place in the top flight. And Sampdoria's coach, Sven-Göran Eriksson, reveals the exclusive news of Des Walker's likely transfer back to a top English club.
Needed that. Now it's time for the highlights of Inter versus Genoa.
Rather harsh decision against Ruben Sosa to give Genoa this free kick. Gives you some impression of Inter's tactics to see Ruben Sosa inside his last third of the field as Genoa push forward again. Branco with a free kick. Panucci! 1-0 to Genoa! And the player who's made a real reputation for himself for scoring for the Italian under-21 team does it at club level. Scoravi would love to claim that goal, but in fact it's been scored by Christian Panucci. Well, Inter haven't found themselves behind too often in recent weeks, but their championship credentials now could well be tested here by a team battling against relegation. Sosa, that's a lovely turn. Schillaci, oh, straight to the goalkeeper. That was a very disappointing shot by Toto Schillaci. Sosa released him, and as he sprinted clear of Caricola, he should have driven the ball past Spagnuolo. Fontaine now. Genoa have really tightened up in defence. Inter are going to find it hard to break them down. Fontaine, oof! Signorini can't believe that he fell for that one. But he tripped Fontaine right on the edge of the penalty area, and Genoa know all about what Ruben Sosa can do from these sort of positions. It's all hands to the pumps now. Genoa leading Inter by a goal to nil. Ruben Sosa standing over the ball. He's done it! Oh, they feared the Uruguayan. And that brilliantly flighted free kick brings Inter level. He disguised his intent, took Spagnuolo over to the left-hand side and draws Inter right back into this game and back into the championship race. Berti gets it clear, here's Branco. Oh, that's an unbelievable stop by Senga, and he denies Scaravi. Shut him off now, but the crowd still buzzing about that exceptional save from Walter Zenga. He unfolded his giant frame to deny Branco and then had to deny Scaravi as well. Bergami. Schillaci. Inter have won it back, this could be dangerous. Schillaci now. Oh, that's a dreadful miss.
All the rest of the Serie A goals to come. But now let's go behind the headlines for all the week's news from James Richardson.
Good morning. After a week of comings and goings, rumour and counter-rumour, things are finally looking up at AS Roma. They had a great result against Milan last Sunday. Their owner, Giuseppe Ciarapico, is now back in jail. And what's more, he's agreed to sell the club. The new owners should be two Roman industrialists, one from the petrol business, another from the construction side of things. And between them, they've agreed to put up £55 million in order to meet all the club's debts. So Roma are on the road to recovery, and huzzah for them. But in the meantime, heading rapidly in the other direction are Fiorentina. Their loss to Atalanta last Sunday means that Serie B is now a strong possibility for the team, and it's unleashed the full fury of the Fiorentina fans against their squad. Florence, the days of fear. The city points the finger at its players, as the Corriere said on Tuesday, and I think we can all guess which finger. The anger towards the players is such that it's resulted in extraordinary events in Florence this week. It all started when the players got back on Sunday night. Their coach was met and surrounded by 500 angry fans who threw coins and shouted threats. Chief object of their ire was the outspoken captain Stefan Effenberg, who couldn't actually leave the coach until the police arrived to escort him off. And it wasn't an isolated incident either, because when he and Brian Laudrup arrived home that night, they found that their families had been harassed by threatening phone calls. Now, acting on the club's advice, Laudrup has sent his family back to Denmark, and he and Effenberg are now living in a hotel. Fiorentina face Udinese tomorrow in a game which will be crucial to their hopes of staying in Serie A, but Effenberg has already declared that he doesn't want to play. He wants to leave the club right away. The night's somewhat sweeter, however, up in Juventus. On Wednesday evening, 10,000 fans filled the streets of Turin to celebrate the club's third ever UEFA Cup, a record which was celebrated thus by the Turin newspaper Tuttosport, Our Lady of the Cups. Fellow Turin newspaper, although slightly more serious, is La Stampa, who had this, Chin Chin Juve, whereas the Gazzetta dello Sport from Milan had glory for Juve, joy for Baggio. Incredibly enough, it's the first title that Roberto Baggio has won, despite a very successful career, and he was about as happy as could be after the game, telling reporters, at least now they can't say that I just win bar tournaments, and going on to add that the happiest moment of the evening for him was hearing Queen sing, "We are the champions." Well, as you'd expect, highlights of that Juventus triumph are coming up after the break, as indeed are highlights of Paul Gascoigne's extraordinary performance from last Sunday against Ancona. Phantom of the Stadio Olimpico, as everyone's already pointed out, but perhaps Hi-Ho Silver was more the case, as Gascoigne galloped to the rescue of a rather dull match, coming up with some extraordinary play and helping Signori to his 25th goal of the season, a new Lazio record. Gazzetta didn't score himself, but his play was rewarded with absolutely stratospheric marks from the papers over here, and indeed the entire front page of the Messaggero's Monday Sports section. The headline here, "Beauty in a Mask." Paul was so enamoured of his new mask, in fact, that he told journalists after the game, "I'm never going to take it off," an idea which, now that he comes to mention it, does have a certain something. However, he and his new partner were soon parted, because on Tuesday, Rome awakened to the shock news. Gaza, what a crisis, the mask has been stolen. Apparently somebody broke into Lazio's training ground on Monday and took nothing but the carbon fibre accessory. No ordinary burglary, according to the police, who rated a crime committed for the love of Gascoigne. Well, thankfully, Paul has now been given a couple of spare masks, and he'll be along in a couple of minutes to tell us about that and everything else that's happened to him this week, which includes a bomb scare, funnily enough. And we'll also have Serie A goals coming up from last weekend, of course, the UEFA Cup final highlights featuring Juventus and Borussia Dortmund, and a visit by me to Sampdoria coach Sven-Göran Eriksson, in which we attempt to discover, amongst other things, just what is the future for Des Walker. All of that coming up soon, but first of all, a break.
Welcome back. Names of our lucky Italian Cup final trip winners are coming up shortly. But first, goal action from Serie A with Gary Bloom.
Atalanta in the dark strip fielded an 18-year-old Federico Pisani for their home game against struggling Fiorentina. But it was the old stager Carlo Perrone who provided the game's first moment of genuine class. Pisani's contribution followed on the half-hour mark. The young striker, tipped for future success, couldn't have imagined scoring in Serie A would be so easy. Pinato in Atalanta's goal then denied Batistuta an equalising goal just before the half-time break. Fiorentina could and should have levelled the scores in the second half. Effenberg with this erratic finish. Pisani and Gans then combined for this splendid effort. The goalkeeper Manini needed to be at his best again moments later to foil Perrone. But with just 5 minutes left, Fiorentina grabbed an equaliser, Facenda getting the final touch. Fiorentina's problems began with the sacking of coach Gigi Radici in January, ironically following a home defeat at the hands of Atalanta, who were determined to inflict more pain on the side from Florence when 2 minutes later a cross from Pasciullo was unwittingly deflected into his own net by Batistuta. The Argentinians' own goal granted Atalanta a victory in their last game of the season in Bergamo. The Italian football authorities have ordered the club to play its next 2 home games on neutral ground, following their fans' unruly behaviour in Brescia a week ago. Next to Foggia, where Giulio Nucciari stepped into Sampdoria's goal for the injured Pagliuca. Kolivanov stepped in to score after just 2 minutes. The unfortunate goalkeeper has played just 13 times in 9 seasons in Serie A and evidently wasn't used to the new back-pass law. It was a shame for Nucciari, who soon found his reflexes hadn't deserted him. Sampdoria had never won a Serie A match in Foggia and needed better finishing than this to alter that statistic. Foggia, always difficult to beat at home, hadn't lost in front of their fans for 4 months. Here's Roberto Mancini, denied by Francesco Mancini. Nucciari kept the score at 1-0 just before half-time with a fine save from Bresciani. Foggia's goalkeeper wasn't to be outdone in the second half. And he continued to deny his namesake, Roberto. Kolivanov squandered the opportunity to increase Foggia's lead, but it wasn't decisive. Foggia are now almost certain to be playing in Serie A next season. It's not often Paul Gascoigne manages to hide his cheek, but this was an exception. A carbon fibre protection for his fractured face meant he played for Lazio in blue against Ancona. Lajos Tatari should have scored here for Ancona, denied by Orsi's save. Riedler should have managed to alter the 0-0 scoreline. He did have 2 chances after all. In an identical move, Lazio took the lead. Riedler with a header, and Cravero this time finishes accurately. Cravero's had to take a back seat to Lazio's more illustrious goal scorers this season, so this goal would have been particularly welcome. Number 2 Fontana gives the impression of a marathon runner finishing his 26-mile slog. Beppe Signori still had Lazio's goal-scoring record of 24 goals in a season in his sights. Caccia had Lazio's goal in his sights with this header. Lazio thought they'd scored a third when Riedler won this tackle and unselfishly squared the ball to Fuzère. Fuzère more selfishly declined to use Signori at the bottom of your screen, but this one was ruled out for a foul. Watch out for the linesman, raising his flag right at the start of the incident. Unfortunately, he put it down again, so the referee didn't notice an infringement. Nista, though, did put the referee right, and the goal didn't count. Gascoigne must put the final gloss on his return to the team with a goal. 19 seasons ago, Giorgio Chinaglia scored 24 goals in a 16-team Serie A. Signori had now drawn level with that total. Signori... Unbelievably, this is only Signori's 2nd season in Serie A. Surprisingly, neither Milan or Juventus have made an offer for his services. Nothing emphasised his confidence more than the manner in which he took this chance. So it was a red-letter day for Signori and Lazio too. It was their most emphatic win of the season. Daniele Massaro's miss for Milan against Roma was to prove costly for the champions, who had Van Basten back at the San Siro for the first time since December. Roma rarely broke out from their own half of the field, and when they did, it was hardly worth the effort. Milan lost Paolo Maldini late in the first half with an injured shoulder. It was later revealed he would only miss one game. His replacement, Gambaro, then combined with Van Basten and Donadoni. In the second half, Muzzi and Rizzitelli failed to dig the ball out of the turf, with Roma's best chance of the game. At the other end, Cevoni did well to deny Massaro. After last week's 5-4 defeat against Torino, Roma were determined to keep a clean sheet. I wonder if Cevoni knew he'd done so there. Milan were well below par, but still managed to construct moves of the highest order. Marseille, beware. Van Basten failed to add to his 13 goals for the season, and the match ended goalless.
And despite a 3-1 first leg lead, over 60,000 fans turned up at the Stadio delle Alpi to watch Juventus finish off the UEFA Cup final task that they'd begun so well a fortnight ago. A wet night was made even more dismal for Borussia Dortmund within 5 minutes of the kickoff, thanks to the magic of Gianluca Vialli. His cheeky back heel provided something out of nothing, and Dino Baggio made the most of it. The 21-year-old midfielder celebrated in style, and no wonder, for it was a repeat of his vital opener for Juventus in the first leg. Vialli also deserved his hugs because it was his vision that opened up a path for Baggio to smash home a shot with his left foot. Dino Baggio then showed his defensive qualities, breaking up an attack to free Andy Muller, who was again preferred to David Platt. Muller found Roberto Baggio, who did everything right, up until the final shot. He hung his head, wondering how he'd failed to curl the ball past the German goalkeeper. But 3 minutes from half-time, Kroos was beaten again. As Muller's free kick floated into the area, Dino Baggio lost his marker to head his and Juve's second. The celebrations could now begin on and off the field. There were at least 5 defenders between Baggio and the goal, but somehow he burst through to plant his header home via a post. The rout was completed 20 minutes into the second half. Vialli's persistence started the move. Demarchi's through ball was backheeled by Roberto Baggio, and a defender could only knock it against Muller's shins and into the net. Muller might not have known much about it, but he'll certainly claim the goal against his former Dortmund teammates. This, after Baggio's magic, had caused the initial panic in the visitors' box. 3-0 then the final score, 6-1 over the 2 legs, with David Platt as happy as anyone at the end. It was Roberto Baggio who lifted the trophy, the 4th time in 5 years it's been won by an Italian club. Now can Milan complete a Serie A clean sweep next week in the Champions Cup? But it's not been a bad week for Paul Gascoigne, thanks to that much publicised mask.
I trained with it the day before the game and everything went well, it felt comfortable. So before the game I still didn't even know. I went to the referee and I said, you know, what are the chances of playing with a mask? And the referee said, yeah, there shouldn't be a problem as long as you don't go sticking the nut on anyone, you can play. And I decided to play and got the nod. Keeper had to save it, then you know, they were still in with a chance with 2-0. Knocked it square, just a little tap to Riedel, and Riedel topped it in. As I say, it's a bit of confidence for forward, and I'm really pleased. To see Riedel get a goal and to see the team training up and playing so well. Well, I've had a few scares this week. Starting off, the first one, I arrived to clean the pool and I found a snake skin about the size of me. That's frightened of us because the guy said, well, you know, got rid of the cat, so the snake will help to get rid of the mice. Well, the snake can get on their bikes and return to the cat. They can have 20 cats and they make one snake. And the other one was the bomb. Last week there was a bomb not a bomb square, but we're sitting having a nice scream, and all of a sudden the lights went off and a bomb exploded 100 yards away from her, which took down half a building and blew up a car halfway across the road. Wouldn't have been so bad, but we were only 100 yards away from it. It's probably the most frightening experience I think I've had. But luckily we had Johnny, who works for Monday at Ball with us, and he secured everything was okay. And then I shot off to the hotel and went straight to the toilet. The third scare, there was an accident where Mason had fell into the river, and his nan had jumped in to save him. She couldn't swim. I'd just like to thank the people, the woman, and the guy in the boat, and the other people for actually helping, Shell and the family for being there. I think if that woman hadn't been there, well, who knows what happened to Mason. I'd just like to thank them personally from me and Shell, because I don't think if they had been there, then Mason might have not been here. I'd just like to thank them personally, like I said before, from me and Shell. Thanks very much. Well, there's been a lot going on in the English papers so far, especially about Terry Venables, Sugar, and obviously all revolving around Tottenham. When you're a part of the club and you've been there before, it's hard to see someone like Terry who's took me from a boy and made me into one of the, a good, top class player. He's done a lot for me, and I only hope that he gets back in and everything's all well with Tottenham, because it's a big club. Everyone knows it's a big club. It's a great team to play for, and the atmosphere is good. And only for the sake of, for Terry and all the players want him back. I hope he gets back and everything goes well, even with Sugar there with him. We just have to wait and see. Well, I watched the game through the weekend, Poland against San Marino, and it took Poland about 53 minutes to score against them. We have Poland away to Poland. It's going to be a tough game, we know that. But for me, whether it be 1-0, 2-0 or 5, whatever, the most important thing I've said before is a good team performance and the 2 points, and that's what we'll be looking for. And hopefully against Poland we can get all that right going into the Norway game, because there's 2 matches next to each other, very tight within the space of a week.
No, I have the document. No, please, no.
Gazzetta, Football Italia, Q-titles. When I played for Newcastle, and when I left Newcastle, Willie McFarlane said, well, Paul, you made your bed, you have to lie in it. Oh, it's quite comfortable, my bed, I'll tell you that now. Cheers.
Welcome back. The future of Des Walker under the microscope shortly, but first let's complete the Serie A goal action, starting with a game from Saturday night when Juventus warmed up for their UEFA Cup final appearance with a trip to Cup Winners' Cup champions Parma. They went ahead after 39 minutes with this superb finish by Roberto Baggio. It was the Juventus captain's 19th goal of the season, his best ever tally in Serie A. Parma equalised in the second half with a move started by the Colombian Faustino Asprilla, now back from injury. The ball eventually reached Thomas Brolin, whose block shot was headed home by Marco Ossio. For Ossio, who played a key part in Parma's European triumph last week, it was his third goal in 3 games. Ossio again popped up to score the winner after 56 minutes, neatly volleying Di Chiara's cross from close in. So Parma win 2-1 and move above Juventus into 3rd place.
Napoli wore their unfamiliar red strip for their trip to the already relegated Pescara. Only a win would suffice Zola, Careca and company if they were to clinch a UEFA Cup spot. But nobody seemed to have told Fonseca. The referee dealt Napoli a helping hand after 20 minutes when he sent off Nobile, presumably for a professional foul. The defender quite clearly was bemused by it all, and he raised the same question. Carlos Dunga then stung the palms of Galli in Napoli's goal. Napoli, without an away win for 4 months, continued to struggle to find the target. And thanks to Galli, went into the half-time interval with the scores level. But 7 minutes into the second half, Palladini struck to give 10-man Pescara the lead. Pescara were determined to leave Serie A with some restored pride. Galli won't be proud of this goalkeeping though. He was called into the action again to deny Dunga's low drive. Napoli were unfortunate not to draw level. Zola's free kick deserved better. Moments later, Napoli's problems worsened when Kripa was sent off for tripping Borgonovo. Or did he? Both sides were now down to 10 men as the match reached its closing stages. Pescara have regularly thrown away chances of victory this season and seem to do so again when Compagno handled the ball inside his penalty area. However, Fonseca missed the spot kick, his second in 3 weeks. Then Borgonovo lobbed Galli to extend Pescara's lead. Napoli were unbeaten in 8 fixtures prior to this one. Pescara hadn't won for more than 2 months. On the stroke of full time, Borgonovo snatched his second goal of the game, Pescara's third. After the match, Galli made a public apology to Napoli's travelling supporters following his disappointing performance. Napoli say goodbye to their UEFA Cup hopes. Pescara, despite the win, are getting ready to wave goodbye to Serie A. 13 years have passed since Cagliari, in all white, last defeated Torino away from home. But after Capioli had struck an upright, Firicano started the goal blitz on 4 minutes. Mattioli provided the cross, the defender the decisive finish. Five minutes later, Herrero robbed Schifo and skillfully set up his compatriot Enzo Francescoli for goal number 2. It's hard to believe Torino were protecting the best defensive record in Serie A as the 2 Uruguayans combined to score. Cagliari were determined to score from anywhere, but perhaps someone should have told Sana the Torino goal was at the other end of the field. In the second half, the home side almost pulled a goal back through Silenzi. And then an uncharacteristic mistake from Luca Fusi presented Francescoli with an opportunity to claim his second goal of the match. Remember, both Torino and Cagliari were lying 7th and 8th respectively before the match, and both were fighting for a place in Europe. Francescoli makes it 3-0. Even when Torino did manage to breach the Sardinian defence, they found Mario Yelpo in inspirational form. Here he palms away Venturin's effort. But Cagliari's demolition job wasn't complete. Puchedo saw to that. Capioli's pass set up the full-back, who thumps home his 7th goal of the season. Cagliari defeated Torino 4-0 during their league championship season in 1970, but now are to go one better, when in the final minute Ferricano released Oliveira and the Belgian international scored goal number 5. Torino hadn't conceded 5 goals in a match for 4 seasons. In fact, their 5-0 defeat was the club's worst at home since January 1959. Which forced the club president to apologise to the fans on a loudspeaker after the game. I wonder whether Ken Bates would do the same at Chelsea. And finally to the relegation battle between Udinese in the striped shirts and Brescia. The home side were awarded a penalty after only 6 minutes when Sabo pulled down Orlando. Abel Balbo scores from the penalty spot for his 21st goal of the season. Udinese almost doubled their lead 5 minutes later. Marco Branco with this spectacular finish. Brescia replied with a header from Sabao, who will probably feel he should have done better here. But 5 minutes before the break, the home side scored their second goal of the game. Marco Branco stylishly converting Pellegrini's through pass. Branco's season has been overshadowed by the form of his striking partner Balbo, but even the Argentinian would have been proud of this goal. Brescia were handed a lifeline a minute before half-time by the defender Calori. Radu Choyu did the rest. Why Calori attempted the back pass with his goalkeeper rushing out to gather the ball, goodness only knows. I suspect Radu Choyu didn't really care. Brescia were reduced to 10 men early in the second half when Brunetti was red-carded for his second cautionable offence. For once, the Brescia coach didn't blame the referee. Balbo could have wrapped things up for Udinese, but needed the finish of a putter rather than a 9-iron. Balbo was then given a chance to redeem himself. He raced clear, and with only Landucci to beat, quite naively, he made it easy for the goalkeeper. So Brescia survived and equalised 2 minutes from full-time. Radu Choyu with his second of the game. The young Romanian striker has enjoyed his most prolific spell since arriving in Italy 3 years ago. The 10 men of Brescia weren't content with a point, and following 4 minutes of stoppage time at the end of the game, they were awarded a penalty when Radu Choyu was clumsily brought down by Orlando. Incredibly, Radu Choyu missed the spot kick, but watch how the number 5 encroaches, almost to a point of taking the kick himself. The penalty should have been retaken, but it wasn't, and both clubs remain in the bottom 4 of Serie A.
After last weekend's draws, Milan and Inter were still separated by those 4 points. At the bottom, Pescara and Ancona are relegated, but any 2 of the 4 sides above them could also slide out. Who'll replace them? Well, one promotion place in Serie B was decided last weekend when Reggiana visited Cesena. Reggiana finally clinched a place in Serie A for the first time in their 74-year history. Reggiana, in the dark strip, had just missed out on promotion in the last 2 campaigns, but the club, nicknamed Little Milan, survived a few early scares before taking control of the first half. After Schenzer was unceremoniously brought down, Morello's powerful free kick just cleared the Cesena crossbar. But then 5 minutes before the half-time break, Zanoni worked his way into the Cesena penalty area and Sacchetti converted the pass to give Reggiana the lead. The celebrations commenced at the start of the second half, but Cesena, who enjoyed a marvellous return to form following the appointment of Azeglio Vicini, were determined to keep intact the unbeaten record under the former national team coach, and the home side earned a point on 68 minutes through Hogman. The match ended level, but Reggiana and their fans could still continue their celebrations. Reggiana promoted then with 50 points already. Cremonese are favourites to join them, but 5 teams are battling for those 2 other places. Back to Serie A and the scoring chart, headed, as it has been from day one, by Beppe Signori. His 2 goals against Ancona not only helped him beat the club record set by Giorgio Chinaglia in 1974, but put him 4 clear of Abel Balbo. Signori scored both goals in the January clash with Brescia, and he could easily add to his tally tomorrow. There are also important top-of-the-table games for Inter against Foggia, Parma at Genoa, and a 4-pointer at the bottom where Fiorentina entertain Udinese. Our live game pits UEFA Cup heroes Juventus against the Sampdoria team just 1 place below them in Serie A. But will David Platt and Des Walker feature? James Richardson reports.
I'm leaning on a railing outside the rather plush Genoa home of Sven-Göran Eriksson, known to you and I, of course, as the coach of Sampdoria. Now, as such, he's very well placed to answer some rather interesting questions like, are Sampdoria really selling Des Walker? Are they really buying David Platt? And just how do they propose to deal with Roberto Baggio and co when they play Juventus in the big game tomorrow? Nice enough questions, time for some answers. We found the 45-year-old Swedish maestro out on his terrace, doing his best to have a relaxing afternoon despite the sudden intrusion of the Channel 4 film crew and the approaching battle at the Stadio degli Alpi.
It will be a great game Sunday. I hope that we can make a good result because it's very important for us in this moment.
This is Eriksson's first year at Sampdoria. It's the latest step in a glittering career that includes previous spells in Italy, Sweden and most recently Portugal, where he took Benfica to a European Cup final with Milan. After a career as an amateur player in Sweden, Eriksson the coach found fame in 1982 when his Gothenburg team became the first ever Swedish side to win a European title. After that came his first spell at Benfica, success at Roma, where he almost won a Scudetto, and Fiorentina. There he witnessed the start of Roberto Baggio's career. Could you see in those days that Baggio was going to be the player that he is now?
I think you could see it 5-6 years ago, that he was something very, very special. Brilliant technique. He went always home looking at the games afterwards, and you could see, you could smell it that he is big talent and he will be a great player.
Baggio these days is indeed a great player. 9 goals in his last 7 games. He's notched up 33 in all this season between Serie A, Europe and the national team. Beyond the numbers though, Baggio is finally filling the role of leader at Juve, driving them to their 3-1 defeat of Milan in April and of course in the last few weeks their UEFA Cup victories over Dortmund.
What can you do against him? You must pay attention to him, and you must always look where he is. We are not going to mark him man for man, but we can't give big spaces to him because then he's too good.
Tomorrow's game against Juventus has now become crucial to Sampdoria. A place in Europe is essential for them to retain their sponsor's petrol company ERG, but they're one of 6 sides fighting for the remaining 3 UEFA Cup places, and Torino, Atalanta and a reborn Cagliari side are all just 1 point behind. Wins against Parma and at Atalanta had left Sampdoria well placed, but their recent lacklustre performances against Pescara and at Foggia this week means loss tomorrow would leave their chances very compromised.
We thought we had almost both feet in Europe, Instead, we had 2 easy games, and we thought we could make 3 points. Instead, we took only 1.
Sampdoria almost certainly wouldn't have taken this goal against Foggia if it wasn't for the fact that Pagliuca was absent after his terrible car crash. However, what was worrying was the team's inability in the remaining 88 minutes of the game to pull level. Even Roberto Mancini came up short. He's been Sampdoria's attack often single-handed this year, notching up a career-high 14 goals and helping the team get over the departure of their legendary bomber Gianluca Vialli.
Very strange. Mancini did a great year, excellent, and we are very happy, of course, of that. But sometimes he's a little bit for himself up there. It should be good to have another great player next to him.
Here in Italy, there's a lot of people who suggest that David Platt will soon be filling exactly that role. Platt should be playing tomorrow, but it's now almost certain that Juventus will be selling him at the end of this season. They say here in Italy that you and David Platt had a meeting recently in which you talked about his possible future in Sampdoria. Is any of that true?
No, it's not true. But I have seen in some papers rumors putting Platt here for next season, and I like him. He's a good player, of course. But it's too early. You don't know if Sampdoria is playing in Europe or not next season. So you have to wait a couple of weeks to know exactly what's happening.
So, bated breath there. Somebody to keep Mancini company would certainly help, but it's not the team's biggest problem. That's been its defence this year. Amazing considering the talent Sampdoria have assembled in that area. Sampdoria's defence contains 5 international players, and yet it's been one of the worst features of the team all season. Why do you think that is?
We played very offensively in the beginning of the league. After a while, we changed. So the last 8-9 games, we not suffering so many goals, but on the other hand, we are not scoring so much. Maybe we was a little bit too romantic in the beginning of the league. So we changed, and things are a little bit better now.
Changes in the Sampdoria squad have now virtually halved the number of goals scored against them in recent months. Biggest victim of these changes, however, has been Des Walker. Despite early notoriety as the man beaten for this Asprilla goal, Des started off well enough at Sam, enjoying his customary central defender role and playing with considerable authority, with international Marco Lana shifted out to left-back to make room for him.
Unfortunately, I thought that Lana could play left defender. Last year he was a libero. I put him as a left defender, and then we had Manini, Walker and Vierkewood. And I thought that should be one of the best backlines in all Europe, in all the world.
The plan didn't work though. Lana couldn't make it at left back, but as Sampdoria discovered, neither could Walker. Juventus' goal in the last meeting of these two teams demonstrating very clearly the damage done by a defender playing out of his natural position. Walker struggled on, but after a pretty disastrous performance against Inter in April, the mainstay of England's defence found himself substituted off. Since then, he spent most of his time on the bench. Sampdoria have their under-21 international Stefano Sacchetti in his place, as the squad gets used to life without Walker.
You could see that he wasn't happy. So that was the main reason why we took the decision that we have to have one left-footed who can attack and put in some balls. That was the main reason.
And he is going to be on the bench against Juventus?
Well, we haven't done the team for Sunday yet, but if nothing special will happen, might be like that, yes.
What's going to happen to Des Walker at the end of this season has been the subject of heated debate here in Genoa, as well as, of course, in England. So far, Sampdoria have been markedly reluctant to give any clear indications as to the player's future. But here at their Bogliasco training ground, we talked to the club's direttore sportivo, Paolo Borea, and he told us this.
Ma ancora non è niente deciso, ma ci sono diversi club inglesi che hanno mostrato interesse nei confronti di questo calciatore. Tanto per non far nomi, Sheffield Wednesday, Leeds, Tottenham e poi anche il Marsiglia. Ma Des Walker è un grande giocatore, un grande stopper, sicuramente uno dei migliori d'Europa. Ma è importante che lui giochi nel suo ruolo. Sì. Purtroppo da noi non ha potuto giocare nel ruolo per il quale era stato comprato.
Hai visto che questo problema rimarrà l'anno prossimo?
L'anno prossimo è solo per questo che si è parlato di questo trasferimento.
Allora è
per un problema
probabile, no?
può essere.
From what Dotto de Barea says, it now looks certain that Walker's going to be going at the end of the season.
Of course, it's a pity. Walker is a great player. Everybody knows that. And unfortunately for Walker, recently he's on the bench, and of course it's a bad situation for us, bad situation for Walker, bad situation for the English national team.
Looking back, given that Walker is a great player who doesn't have a role within the team now, do you think it was a mistake to buy him?
The mistake was, or is, that I was sure that Lama could make left defender. It has nothing to do with Walker. The fault is mine.
So what of Des Walker himself? Well, Gon is the happy and relaxed player of our earlier visits to Sampdoria. Off camera, Des told us he doesn't want to talk now. There'd be just too much to explain. On camera, his reply was to drive off. Belief in Walker's talents hasn't died here, but he's clearly now the odd man out in Sampdoria's failed project to build the world's greatest defence. It now looks certain that tomorrow will be our last look at Desmond Walker in a Sampdoria shirt.
So Des Walker's future looks like being outside of Italy. But tomorrow his current team Sampdoria play at Juventus. 1-1 was the score when they last met in January. But what's in store this time? Join Peter Brackley and Ray Wilkins for the whole match live and exclusive at 2:45.